All right, I'd like to call the June 24th, 2024 Select Board meeting to order. Well, first, welcome, Ben.
Thank you.
Welcome back, I guess.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Karen.
Yes, true. That's
Yeah.
true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yep. Okay, welcome back. Thank you. Do we have any amendments to the agenda for tonight?
The
Go ahead.
only thing I just wanted to add, can we just do a quick rehash of the town meeting?
Sure.
Just sort of just a quick overview.
Well,
Would just be good to.
no, that's a good idea. Let's, I guess we had just start the new business off with that.
I mean, that's kind of minutes of the previous meeting, right? But go and
Yeah,
slot in.
that's
that.
true. That's true.
How about public comments?
Would you would stick it in there?
No.
Would
I thought you were skipping over public comment.
not, no, not,
Oh,
no, no, but we could, yeah, Rufus was right. We could make it like 3B. Just a review of the town meeting.
Yeah.
Kevin, are we violating anything now?
No, it's your agenda. so-
Okay, did you have anything did you have something you need to add?
I have a couple of other appointments that I forgot to add in there.
Okay.
And that's not adding anything new to the
Okay.
agenda, just when we get there, I do have a couple of other appointments I need to
Okay.
ask you to consider.
All right, that sounds good. Then minutes of previous meeting, June 10th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
so move.
Moved by Tor,
Yeah.
seconded by Rufus then. Did anyone have any corrections, additions?
Mhm.
Anything on that? Nope. Good job to Emma for doing them on the live.
On the line.
Doing them live.
No
All
replay.
right, then all in favor of minutes, passing the minutes? 4 yeses and 1 abstention. Okay, yeah, summary of the town meeting. Was there anything particular? You have some thoughts that you wanted
I
to
guess
share?
I made the comment. I think the only I mean, may seem a little pointless because it was so sort of brief and I mean, just easy,
Mhm.
I think, sometimes we'll have meetings that are not like that, so it'd be good to capture that as well, but I think generally, I thought it went pretty well. I think our sort of jumping around with comment on the separate sort of warrant articles in terms of budget, I think works pretty well.
Having a discussion on them. Yep.
Yeah, just kind of like selectively, divvying that up. I thought one of the probably more important comments were, at the end of the meeting, which is, hey, why do we only have 38 people here voting?
I was gonna comment. on that.
Roger
Yeah.
Hathaway's comment at the end.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
You have to, you have to
Sorry.
speak up, Tor.
yeah, sure. So my comment, Katrina, was about the at the annual town meeting, there was it was a pretty fluid meeting and some questions, some discussions, but at the end there was a comment, an added comment from who was it, Roger
Roger
Hathaway?
Hathaway, yeah.
And he said, he just wanted to point out there was only 38 people in the annual town meeting legislating for about 1,800. So it's a good point. And the question is, why is that? And he stated what he had in his mind, statistics of 10 years back, having 160 people at town meeting, 5 years back, having about 80 people, and we see a sort of decline. So I guess something to question. Why is that? Seems like we're not the only town. I mean, I think Demerscata had their meeting on Saturday with 35 people in attendance. So yeah, is there a way to bolster attendance at annual town meeting?
Yeah.
And it's just a good question. I don't know.
We'll have to think about it between now and next year, because it would be nice if we could at least double that number. If anyone has any suggestions, pass them along. Anyone have any other thoughts on the meeting?
No, that was going.
You have a comment? Yes.
Have a suggestion, how about offering a coupon for a reduction in property tax?
To everybody who attends? That'd be good. Yeah, Katerina?
Email. Everybody's now on their phones. I don't think everybody reads a newspaper. I don't, I actually looked up, I had a little trouble finding it on the website, but I know that everyone in our neighborhood, you have their email.
Yep, I think we can do a better job of using other means of communication for stuff like this. I know the town does have a you can subscribe to the town's website, not just the email list for your neighborhood, but we can all subscribe to the town emails, and we perhaps could make better use of that for things like this too. So,
No, that's asking other people to come in and set and be part of the emails. The town must have emails they can start with. I know they do.
we do have some, we have to call them out and have somebody enter them in some kind of a mailing list within the.
Isn't that important?
Yes,
I think it's multifaceted
It
because
is.
not everybody is good with, does email. I mean,
not everybody does
and,
email,
you
right?
know, and so, yeah, I think it's multifaceted, but
Yep.
advertising is key.
Yep.
Maybe we need to put a sandwich board out on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
A week ahead of
Everybody
town
drives
meeting
by.
and just say, hey, annual town meeting.
Yep.
Thursday and, please attend.
Yep.
You know.
All right, we'll have to have some other. You got one too, Roger?
Yeah, for a number of years, I've been asking for a message board out front of the town office that once you pay for this sign, you can change the message instantly, and you can put out a select board's meeting tonight at 7, town meetings at Monday night at 6 o'clock, and it's free. I mean, and it's there, and how many people drive right by there every day? And I know, like, Wiscasset has one, and down Woolwich, they have one, and I think Damascotta has one, and I don't know what something like that costs, but it's free messages once you make the investment in the sign. And you can put anything on it that you want, Merry Christmas, or voting tonight at 7, or whatever you want. I mean.
Yep.
And people drive right by there every day,
Yep.
so.
All right, yeah, we'll have to look into some of these things.
Yeah.
All right. Something else then. Public comments on items not on the agenda. And I know you guys have something.
You want us to come up or?
Yes. Oh, Jeff, we don't have a mic there.
It is.
Oh, you pick it up. Okay. Yep.
So we all have gotten,
Sorry. Yeah.
Wanda Wilcox, North Diana Road. We have all gotten I think in the last week, our letters from
Jim.
Jim about our new tax, values. But, so my first comment is, do we have, what the new mill rate's gonna be? Because it's nice to have a new value, but without a mill rate, it's hard to comment on how that's gonna affect you and what that's gonna
Right.
mean. I mean, I kind of have and so my thought is, do we have an idea about the mill rate? Because we just passed a budget, so we must know whether we want to stay stable, if we're looking to increase, because right now, if we stayed at the 6%, at the 16, at the same with our new evaluations, that's obviously gonna up.
No, it's going down,
Okay,
but I don't think Jim's.
Jim presents that in July.
Okay.
So
but it's definitely gonna go down.
we don't know. I mean, it's up to Jim, but yeah.
But generally, we're not gonna have to raise double the taxes on anybody.
Yeah, I'll just say when Jim gets to it and
Yeah.
presents it, then we'll know.
Because it's
It
just
isn't
hard to
like-
comment. He wants
It
us to
is.
get back to him. And yet, without knowing what that means for the bottom line, it's kind of hard to get back to him on that.
I think he's just, at this point, he's just looking for whether you're the card, the card that he keeps. You know, if you request
Property
that,
card.
the property card, thank you,
Mhm.
is correct. You know, if you look at your property card, the measurements or the amenities or the construction, the conditions, are those correct? And that's what it will be
That's
based
Well,
all
on.
that-
that's all that this process right now that Jim has reached out to is about, is whether or not what's on your property card is correct or
Right.
if you don't believe the assessed value is correct, you need to bring that to his attention now so that it's not part of an abatement process later.
Because I didn't get anything about what it just was kind of this is your new rates, we're looking at
Right.
your property, these are the new rates.
Right, I think he referenced the property card in there. If you just email him,
Okay.
I did, and he just emailed me mine right back again.
Okay, so one other thing, I know, we had a program through the state that 65 and older, your property tax got kind of, held. And the state was helping finance that, and when I talked to the town office, a while ago, they said that has been nixed. But Roger got a nice thing from the state retirement, that basically talks about it and said there's gonna be a new program with benefits. It's called a property fair, tax fairness credit for those 65 and older. Do you guys know anything about that?
That's a
Mhm.
state program.
And I think it's gonna be, I thought I understood it to be linked to your income tax form.
Correct.
Okay,
Then
so
you
that's
fill your
gonna be through
taxes.
the income
Mhm.
tax, okay. I
Yep.
just didn't know if that had anything to do with the old one or
Yeah,
not.
if
so.
those who are 65 or older are not currently submitting their tax information, some people don't, it's just social security coming in. They will need to do that in order to get reimbursed through that program.
Okay,
Okay, but that's gonna be a state.
state program,
not a-
yeah.
Right,
Okay.
yep.
Because it wasn't very clear what that,
Yeah,
was, so,
the other program was a state legislation that was not well thought out in terms of how it was gonna be administered.
like how they were gonna come up with money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it basically said anyone 65 or older was, could apply for it without thinking about needs-based.
Right,
So,
right,
that got repealed
okay.
at the legislature.
Yes, it did.
this one hopefully will be easier.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Wanda. Roger?
Roger Woodbox. North Diana Road. I guess my first question is for Kevin. Do we still have the policy that after a certain amount of money being spent, it had to go out to bid? Do we have a dollar figure for that?
We repealed the old bid ordinance and replaced it with a policy. We have a policy now that says anything over $50,000 I bring to the board to decide how we bid it out. And in the case of road maintenance, we didn't have this conversation in May,
Yeah.
April or May.
April.
Well, we had it as part of the
Yeah.
budget process, and then I came back to them and said, do you want me to take this out? Snowplow thing out to bid, or do you want to just work with the current contract?
Yeah.
So I am pulling together a contract for them to review, hopefully for the next meeting.
Okay, well, I think the time has come that we need to re-implement a strict limit on whether it's a purchase or whether it's a contract for work being done. And I think we need to put this work out to bid. Absolutely, positively, no discussion. I think we have to set a limit and we have to do that. So, because to me, I'm retired, I'm on a fixed income, and so taxes are important to me. I mean, I'd like to stay in my house and live here and not have to sell land or whatever to pay my taxes. I had a friend of mine, he's a well-respected, well-educated man, and he wanted to settle in Newcastle here. And he had been looking around and he said, Newcastle's too expensive for me to live. I can't afford to live here. And so he bought a house elsewhere. And is that the reputation that we want people to have of Newcastle, that it's not affordable to live here? And so, I mean, to me, the snow plowing, I mean, it's looks to me like it's almost doubled in price. And why? I can't understand that, because this past winter, we hardly had any storms of any significance. The last one we had was in April, and that was probably the biggest one we had. But other than that, I mean, the way he was doing it, he very little plowing and just burned it off with all the salt, just melted it off. So, I mean, his fuel prices haven't doubled. The labor hasn't doubled. So why does the contract double, you know? And to me, if you put this, if you don't put this out to bid, you know, it's kind of like, he writes his own ticket. And I think these last few years, his pencil has not been very sharp on the work that he's gotten from us. And I think we could do a lot better. And contrary to what the board feels, the sun doesn't rise and set on Hager Enterprises. There's other companies out there that can do just as good a work, quality work, and I think at a better price. And the only way to know that is to bid it up. Then you'll know. And so I don't think, you know, like when I was a youngster, I'd ask my parents for a new pair of sneakers or a new bicycle, and they said, what do you think? Money grows on trees? Well, it didn't then, and it doesn't now. So, I mean, we really need to rein in spending and be more careful on how we award this work out. So, you know, it's really come to the point where we need to do that, and because the budgets are growing and growing and growing, and so I think it's time. And, you know, in our discussion a few minutes ago about why people don't come to town meetings and things is, I think people feel like they're helpless to make any change. Like, how do you go about making a change? Like Rob Nelson said with the school budget. They just keep raising the budget. And so how do you combat that? How do you question that? How do you fight that? What's the procedure, you know? And everybody feels helpless to do anything about it, you know? And, you know, in here, like a good example of it is like with the fire truck. We buy a fire truck maybe every 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, we buy a new fire truck. And so for that is over 650,000. And we got 6 bids for that. And here the snowplow contract is almost 500,000. And we're gonna pay that every single year. And we don't put that out to bid. It's just ludicrous to me. It doesn't make any sense to me at all that he doesn't have to bid for this work. And really, you know, nobody's had a chance to bid on it. And he just finished a 5-year contract, I believe. And then there was a 3-year contract before that. So 8 years, nobody's even had a chance to bid on a plowing contract. And that needs to change. It definitely needs to change. And I mean, he's in a dispute with Damascotta now, and he's lost 2 or 3 paving contracts. And he didn't get the job out in the back parking lot in Damascotta. And I don't want to see him making up for that difference in lost revenue with the town of Newcastle. So, I mean, I think it's time. And I just hope that we can start doing that. And maybe the board doesn't feel like they can, you know, make it go out to bid. Maybe, you know, I mean, hard feelings, or I don't know why they feel like you don't want to do that. But to me, it's business. It's just business. And I think we need to get the best buy we can for our dollar that we're going to spend. And I think it's time. And today on the 12 o'clock news, Lewiston has voted down their school budget twice. And they've come up with a new proposal, a third proposal, and that has yet to be voted on. But if this new proposal passes, the impact that it's going to have on Lewiston's budget is if you own a house for 300,000, it's going to, and this budget passes, it's going to up your taxes $500 just for the school budget. And you haven't funded the police department, the fire department, the highway department, or funded any of the city's government functions. So that's the kind of impact that, you know, these bids and these budgets can have on your tax rate. And I mean, I'd like to stay in Newcastle, but I mean, I don't wanna have to sell my land but that's, that's what we're up against, so. Whether we have to, take it before the people, since town meeting, I've been talking to a lot of the people out our way and asking them, would you like to see these work and these, purchases go out to bid? And I didn't get one, no, everybody was yes. Well, we want it to go out to bid, so maybe we need to put that in a referendum or put it on the town warrant, or we have a petition and just make it mandatory that over a certain limit, it's going out to bid and no more discussion. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Roger. I don't know if we want to get into it now, but I mean, there was a lot of reasons that we did discuss it at a meeting as to why we didn't want to put that out to bid this year. And
I can address, I mean,
D-
I
quick.
had the same feelings that you did initially, Roger. I felt the same. And the reasons that I came around, I actually wasn't at the meeting that this got discussed, so I wrote a brief note to the board and I'll just read it to you. So any new contractor will be an unknown quantity. There will most likely be a learning curve that's likely to come at the cost of quality of the job done. Right, so everybody's gotten used to the roads being a certain way. And any new contractor is likely to, it'll be a little while before they're to where we're at. Damerscott is about to go through the process of hiring a new contractor and the growing pains associated with that. So it might be a good time to sit back and watch how they do what they do. And, we're not signing another 5-year contract now. Are we doing a 2 or a 3-year contract?
Nothing's been
Nothing's
decided.
been decided yet. So
Could be a 1 year,
The-
could be a 3 year. it
the
could be-
thought being, let's see what our neighbors do and how it goes for them before we sort of jump ship. And, there's the possibility, the discussion has been floated of, does Newcastle need a public works department? We spend a lot of money on plowing, we spend a lot of money on road maintenance, we spend a lot of money on lawn mowing, on facilities maintenance. There needs to be some serious discussions and some serious investigations into, could we as a town save money by having our own crew of 4 or 5 guys to do all of this work for us instead of subbing it all out. So the idea being that we sign a 1 or a 2 or a 3-year contract with our known quantity to give us time to investigate that and see if it would be a cost savings. Back of the napkin says it might, especially when we're paying what we're paying for snowplow. I mean, that was really, like I said, I was right with you. And I came around to thinking that maybe it's a good idea to do what we've been doing for another year or two so that we can figure out, we don't just jump ship. We wait until the lifeboat's there. I understand it is a lot of money and I feel the same way, but I think that just going with an unknown quantity without any real research, and also how much are we really likely to save? Is it going to be 100,000? Is it going to be 50,000?
No.
Well, it's not gonna be 300,000. I mean, we're in line mile for mile with the going rate.
For the large equipment, unless you're talking a bunch of Ford F-150s running around, which we don't. that's not what we have.
Because of the SALT program that we have requires a certain level of equipment that not everybody has. So there are only so many companies within striking distance of us that are going to be able to bid on that. So we're talking Crooker or, that level of company. So we might save $50,000. We might by going out to bid. But we don't know we will.
It doesn't hurt to put it out there.
It doesn't hurt, but it does require a lot of
It's a lot of his time.
and there are a lot of other priorities.
Well, if we can save a lot of money, I
Well,
think it's worth.
I think the the thought process that we all had was, let's see if we can save a lot of money by doing something different than by just putting this one piece of it up to bid. So I understand, I absolutely understand your concern. I have the same concern, and we are working on it. We just thought that this was the better way to work.
I just don't think that such an increase is warranted. That's a heck of a jump. Almost double the price of snowplow.
We've had that price for 5 years.
We had we got a bargain the last couple of years. They came back to a lot of other towns and requested more money than the contract even allowed for, because the costs have gone up so much. They didn't do that with us. So, I mean, we were kind of fortunate there. But we
And
need to,
there was logic to the decision too, because we looked at the surrounding towns. I'm gonna say almost all of Lincoln County, what they were paying by mile for, for snow plowing. So we did have that data to kind of compare what it is. Not everybody's got a downtown district like Newcastle, so it's not always apples to apples, so you gotta extrapolate. I mean, Demerscata, they don't have a contract now, so we don't know what they're gonna be paying for Hager, but, yeah, so there was thought process to it, and there was a good debate, I think, in the select board, about the decision.
It wasn't just that we don't want any hard feelings. It was, it's calculated. It was a calculated decision, and I think, like I said, 2 years, maybe we'll be doing something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, I think we recognize that we've got to look at this. I mean, we've got to.
Yeah.
We've got to screw into this a little bit more and figure out what's the best solution.
so,
think
we have
it's-
to move on, but.
Yeah, just one
more
quick
comment.
comment, because we've talked about this before, and the amount of salt that is used on
Yeah.
our roads, especially on our back roads, and we had talked at one point about, it'd be really nice if that salt was added right into the plowing contract, because, we just had this double in our plowing contract, plus we still had the salt, we still gotta pay for the salt, and I'm not so sure all that salt would be used on the North Dyer Neck Road, which we don't really need, if that
It
was
was-
in the contract versus having the town write the check for it every month. So, I mean, I think that's important. That's part of the snow plowing is the salt. And I would like to see that added into the actual contract. I think that would be really important. The two go hand in hand. That shouldn't be added on for the town people to pay. Because that just gives them also, whoever has the contract, whether it's Seth or somebody else, a blank check to just go out there and put the old salt down and. And that's not the best use of, we are gonna end up buying somebody well. If he keeps using the kind of salt that he's using.
All right, let's see. Are there any other public comments on items not on the agenda tonight? Great, see, there are none. We can move on to new business, board and committee appointments. Here. Guess we start off with chair and vice chair.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to be chair? Shall
You've been
I-
doing a great job.
Can I nominate?
I
somebody?
nominate Karen to be,
Oh, it's not even a
chair
discussion.
of the select board.
Yeah, I'll second.
I have to call a vote on this.
Mhm.
Do we have any more discussion? Does somebody else want to do
I think you're doing it.
You're doing a
Yeah.
great job.
it? All right, all in favor? I'll do it. All right, 5-0. But we do need a vice chair. Our vice chair is left. So, is anybody chomping at the bit to?
I was gonna say Joel looks a little different today.
Yeah,
I'll nominate Tor.
so, second that. We sure we don't want to dance?
I'll sit back and watch.
Oh, for just another
Just
year. maybe.
Another year.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, then all in favor of Tor. Right, passes 5-0. All right, Tor, you guys have to swap seats. Sorry. It's musical chairs.
At least it's close.
Yeah. Tor, welcome.
Ah, thank you.
All right, so I guess, do we have to actually get formal motion for this?
What's that?
Is the vote good enough or do we have to make a formal motion for
I
it?
think you're fine.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, now we have some reappointments as well. Do you want me to go through these first or do you want to?
I have another one to add to the appeals. Apparently the recording for Greg Garby is for 2024 as well. Trio system had the wrong year in it, so I'd like to
So three
Ask.
people?
3 people, 2 of them to 2027 and Greg to 20.
Greg?
Just Greg Garby, G. He serves on the Board of Appeals.
And
Term just ends the. To stay on for 3 years. It's 2020.
as the Newcastle. Moved by Rufus, seconded by Ben. Any discussion? All in favor? Passes 5-0. To reappoint Priscilla Haysmith Rhodes to the Harbor Management Committee representing Newcastle with a term expiring June 30th, 2027. Motion made by Ben, seconded by Rufus. Anybody? Yeah, nope, then all in favor? 5-0. To reappoint Sandy Paulson to the Shellfish Conservation Committee representing Newcastle with a term expiring June 30th, 2027. Motion made by Ben, seconded by Rufus. Anybody? Nope. Then all in favor? Passes 5-0. And last but definitely not least, Mal Carey to the LCPRC with the term expiring June 30th, 2027. Motion made by Ben, seconded by Tor. Any discussion? All in favor? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mal. All right. And moving on to new business 5B. Oh, a discussion regarding serving on multiple boards. All right. And here's Peter. I was wondering why you were here.
Went to the gym.
You went to the gym and then you're going before or after this meeting? Or is this your, is this your exercise?
Going home, going home after this. Anyway,
I invited Peter to attend just to be part of the conversation.
Okay.
And really, I think it's important that we focus on the concept, not the individual.
Right.
So leave it, I'll start there.
Yep.
I think I kind of outlined it in the manager's commentary. And does serve on both the planning board and now as elected onto the select board. In many places I've worked or participated in government, individuals typically don't sit on both.
Because they're crazy if they do.
That could be it. Maybe it could also just be, general interest or enough people in a community. I'm sure towns with 500 people serve multiple boards. So I think it's important that this board has that conversation and acknowledges a direction forward.
yeah. So in terms of the law on the subject, basically what you have here is a question of whether or not it's a compatible office. And when you have incompatibility, it's established in law by one office basically being the supervisor of the other office. So, the key case on this is from 1916 in Maine, and it's called, Howard versus Hamilton. And what happened in that case is, the, registrar of elections in the town was running for mayor. And there was another guy, obviously, running for mayor as well. And when the registrar got to the right number of votes where he won, he just stopped counting. He was like, "Oh yeah, we're all done. We've done it. We've done it. We've got a result." So obviously, the other mayoral candidate sued him, and the election was overturned. And what the law court, it kind of went beyond the case and said, the minute you are in a situation where, you know, you're the supervisor for another office, you don't really have a situation in which you can reliably service both. So what are those offices? We know from later cases that code enforcement officer is certainly one, where the Board of Selectmen appoints and also oversees the CEO as effectively a constitutional officer. The clerk is another one where you can't be, where you can't, I'm sorry, where you can't be both the clerk.
There we go.
Technology.
You can't be both the clerk and a member of the Board of Selectmen. Okay. But in planning board, you actually have a different role. So planning board is effectively appointed by the board, and then they just kind of do their job. The Board of Selectmen does not go in and, you know, review what they're doing and say, you know, yeah, they're doing a good job or not. The board that does that is the Board of Appeals. And so the Board of Appeals really becomes kind of the supervisory board for the planning board. Now, it's a little mixed because, you know, as I thought about this a little later this afternoon, I was thinking, well, what would you do if you had a planning board member who kind of started acting in a way that threatened the legal position of the town, harassing people or doing something really extreme? It might end up that the board takes action to remove that person, but I think we would have to actually, we might have to go to court to do that. I'm not sure there's a clear way to do that. You don't really run into it very often because usually planning board members just serve, you know, quietly. And after they've seen 10 million applications, they say, "I've had enough," and they walk away. And so you don't really get, you know, planning boards don't generally draw grenade throwers. And so I think that it's unlikely that that's the situation here, but you know, whereas if you have a CEO and there's an allegation that the CEO did something improper, that's a direct Board of Selectmen matter to determine what happened. So I think, you know, when I look at it, I don't think it is an incompatible office. It might look like, you know, for some people might feel like it's too close, or there's you know, too much power in an individual. My concern, however, in this particular case, I know we're talking about generally about the concept, is that Ben probably knows the ordinance better than anyone. And so having him on the planning board is pretty helpful for this term, at least. So another possible position would be, you know, he's appointed for a certain term, and then, you know, after that phases out or something like that, that might be another option for you to consider later. But yeah, I don't think it meets the requirement of incompatibility. So I think you're free to choose what you want to do.
I guess my thought is just dilution of authority. So my only concern is that if you have people, select board members, serving on the planning board, you know, they couldn't, probably the only board they can serve on, because everything else is a committee. So,
Right.
Is the diluted perception of authority. So, you know, I guess I see the select board as, by definition, the select board, and the position of this discussion group is has authority over, you know, other boards on the town committees. There's a situation just that we went through with the moratorium, which I think would be awkward if, Ben, excuse me, for citing this, case, Ben, but, you know, comes to mind because case in point, Ben had to present something to the select board as the chair of the planning board. I don't see him recusing himself from the select board in that case, because then we end up with a weak select board, right? We end up with a 4-4 or a 4-person vote on a situation that is not ideal because the odd number makes any decision final. So, or let me say, if it's split vote, then the motion's denied. So, I see it as a weakness in the board if, say, the chair of the planning board has to recuse himself from the vote. So in that case, it would, talking about diluted authority, it would be in the best interest of the select board if everybody could vote on every single situation. That said, I think there could be, you know, then there's the reality that we do have, you know, we have to get people in these seats, right? So that's where the rubber hits the road. So you know, and I understand that it's hard to get people interested to actually come to meetings and understand the material and, you know, put in their ambition into what's going on. So I think that is another sort of job task that the select board, the administration of the town needs to engage and make a priority to try to get these committees and boards filled. And so, you know, I think that is part of the task here is to you know, try to get people interested, as we just talked about the annual town meeting. I mean, yeah, how do you get people? I don't know. We're going to be sending out tax commitments in the next month and a half. So, you know, a flyer in the tax in the envelope that says, hey, we need people on the planning board, finance committee, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it's one way to get people, you know, notified and interested. So that's just my thought. I don't see any sort of overstep of authority or control or, you know, that's not, it's just making this a select board and everything else happening a different, you know, different position, I think is important to the town. That said, you know, I think if there was some kind of time limit where the, you know, position, like you said, is appointed to a certain extent, and then we revisit it, you know, another appointment, you know, maybe that's enough time to get somebody interested to fill seats. And the other side of that is, you know, maybe it would make sense for Ben to serve as a member of the planning board, but not as the chair. But that's up to the planning board.
So we already have one one vacancy on this thing, right? It's 5-person board. Do we have any alternates? No. So that's the other practical difficulty. You now have a situation in which you need a unanimous vote from the 3 members, and all 3 members have to show up, have a quorum. Oh, there are 4?
There's 4 on the plan board. We're one short.
Right, no, but I'm
If
saying
you were
we
to
take
step
away.
down.
Yeah, yeah, to go up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
right,
gonna
yeah.
go, yeah, my apologies, I wasn't clear about that. So if we lost 2, you'd be in a situation where it would have to be, everyone would have to show up every time, all 3. And everything that they would do would have to be unanimous. And so I think, you know, that is you know, one of those potential problems as well. So I think, you know, you might be right that, I mean, I think you do need to get people engaged to do it. It's hard getting people to volunteer.
It's a highly paid position. You know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Comes with a lot
Oh,
of.
the
pressure.
Bennies.
a lot of prestige.
And no user feedback ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think also just to make comment, we've, you know, we've got a planning department. We've got a fantastic planner sitting right behind you
Yep.
and very competent. And we also have a very competent CEO.
Yep.
So, you know, we've got really strong administration staff in the town office, so. We've got a lot of tools in the shed already. I think we just need to fill seats and take the pressure off somebody,
Somebody was burning the
that's
candle.
burning the candle. at
How many
different
ends?
But, that's just all.
Judy. Thoughts on like what your plan is anyway, or what you'd like to do?
Well, I've been wanting to get off the planning board for a couple of years now. And it hasn't been practical. I completely agree. And I think I've made it well known that I'm very happy to have the planning department that we have. And feel fully confident in those capabilities, but knocking the planning board down at the moment to 3 members, like you said, is something I just didn't think was really in the best interest of the town. My hope was that I could say that I'll serve for another year. If we can find somebody in the interim who's interested, and more specifically, someone who amongst the current board members or new members would be interested in being chair. I'm very happy to not play board.
It's 5. We have alternates.
Minimum of 5.
I mean, no, are there alternate seats?
No.
So that's 5. Oh, but it's a minimum.
It's
Minimum
five,
of 5.
minimum 5.
Yeah,
All right.
we don't say anything about alternates. But
Okay,
the goal actually at one of our planning board meetings a couple months ago was to try and find up to 7
okay.
total members so that we would not have that issue where we were down too many people to get a quorum. So, and we've so far we've done good. A couple times it's been close, but people have lives and they can't always make every single meeting. I get it.
Especially when they get canceled one week, and pushed to the next.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah, just a second. So we just need to come up with a good plan, probably to
yeah. I mean,
get the word out that
yeah.
we need some planning board members.
I'd like to, cultivate some new members and cultivate some interest. Absolutely.
Email again.
But I do like including in the mailing.
Yes.
Or the-
Oh, did you have a suggestion?
I appreciate the situation and the legal part of it. I would also say, having been involved in some, listening to some of the planning board situations, that the chair or the members of the planning board, it's a really important role. And if one of the members feels really strongly about something and they are a select person, it influences the board. The board is not going to have the same, perhaps the board may not be as open-minded when they know one of their members feels really strongly about a certain issue. And if you delay if you don't delay the process, then you have to do something to get members. If you delay the process, you have other things to do. And I don't think that's going to get done then.
What do you mean delay the what process?
The process of finding new members.
Oh, we don't want to delay it. We want to get on it. I mean, that's,
But if there
We've got to
isn't
do it.
a beginning and an end, it's open-ended and you're gonna have this discussion again.
we don't,
Okay, so.
no, I think we all feel a sense of urgency on this.
Okay, and I think it's just an awkward situation for some really important matters that come up.
We all agree. So we'll just have to, when do those mailings go out?
Next month, end of next month.
There may be more things than just this to go on. We need to
Oh,
put
yeah.
a letter in there with it, but
Yeah.
this is a good one. And any other? We have
Oh, any other
openings?
vacancies?
No, Sam. Sorry, Mal's reason is.
Oh, so Mal, yes, either come up with Peter or speak loud.
Well, we have the microphones.
Yeah.
I leave those.
Oh, they're picking it up, good,
Caption.
okay.
I have a question on the matter for Peter. With the situation where the select board appoints the members of the planning board. They also select the appeals board members. And here you have a remote possibility of a circular conflict process. The person on the select board has the select board has the ability to recall a member of the appeals board. So that's just one little piece of action on the side that could on a very bad day occur. It would be nice if somehow we were to avoid and even the possibility of such. Thank you.
I mean, I think legally, my opinion remains the same because both boards, once they're appointed, are appointed for a term. And so they have, effectively, I would call it almost like judicial freedom to make the decision that they want to make for the term of their office. But I am not insensitive to the, appearance of it.
Mhm.
And I think as a matter of law, I think you guys are clear. As a matter of politics, that's not my job.
Well, also Mel, doesn't that presuppose that we have a plethora of people who want to serve on boards and we get to pick them?
I mean, do we even have a full board of appeals?
That should be other duties as assigned.
Ah, okay.
You had your head down or?
No, I was just trying to think if I have a full appeals board right now. Anyways.
It's hard to keep appeals board members too.
Because they don't meet there very often either.
And, they're taking the most controversial cases from a planning board and then applying on. So.
But I mean, I just want to add, I think two things. One is our town isn't desperate. We're solid in terms of. I know that the citizens that come to meetings are always intelligent, have great questions, are always engaged, it's just getting them here. And, so I think, we'll figure out whatever we have to do. And, a year ago, we didn't have a town manager. And we were searching for a full-time town manager. Thankfully, we had Kevin to step in, but we also had administration staff that was not in the best stance, and we rolled
One
up our-
employee.
What?
You have
One
one
employee.
employee,
One employee.
one full-time employee.
So we had an anemic administration and no town manager. But we rolled up our sleeves and we figured out what to do, and now we're much better off because we focused on it. I think all we need to do as a board and as a town is focus on this issue and find people to fill seats. I think that's all we really need to work on. And I think we'll succeed, so.
If anybody knows of anybody that they might nudge.
I have one suggestion. Perhaps the town could call the town planner to be the chair of the planning board.
He doesn't live in
Don't do
town.
that.
Good
Jordan
thought,
used to
but
serve on the planning board.
yeah, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, what are you doing these days?
I would consider,
Okay,
not the chair, but to serve.
Oh.
Let it be noted that he didn't say no.
he did not say no, he said he would consider it.
On higher voter participation, I would mention one thing too. The highest voter participation I've seen in Newcastle during the last 15, 20 years is your mail away elections.
Mhm.
So if you really want to have robust participation in the questions of the town report, you could consider that. I mean, it's not as nice as having an in-person town meeting. But not everybody wants to give up an evening and it is hard to get them out.
There are some other towns that do that now. Yeah.
Yeah, there are, yeah.
Yes, Union
Yeah.
does that.
Oh, okay.
They
Yeah,
voted,
so-
I went in and voted on all of those questions on a ballot.
I guess the downside is nobody gets to ask questions.
Yeah,
Like, what does this mean?
and here and next
Why-
year I was thinking about, making a spaghetti dinner for everybody.
Somebody
Well,
did, somebody
that-
did make that
We've
suggestion.
done
to
that
us.
with fire company, that boosts to the little, but like, it goes from like, 35, 40 to like 55. But, anyway,
Okay.
yeah, just mention it as a possibility.
All right, so
Trenton at the middle school made dinner for the residents and it had about 80 people,
how big is the town?
2,000.
So not much.
Both in.
Yeah.
So
I just want to say one more thing. I mean, I did a little bit of, deep dive on compatibility of offices as well, and it was the same conclusion that I came to. And if I had found anything I thought would actually be a conflict, I would have absolutely, obviously stepped aside right away. I wouldn't put the town in this position needlessly. But finding none, lacking any better options. I feel like this is where we are at the moment.
Yeah, I do think we should, or as a planning board, should talk about how. I don't know, I'm just going back to the moratorium. On Friday, the town manager called me and said. There's an issue with a retail gun sale. Proximity to the school. That was on a Friday. On a Monday, we had a presentation from the planning board that we should effectively have a moratorium so we can work this out. So when things happen, they happen really quick.
and there was a good turnout.
Well, there was a good turnout to the meeting, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, we can't see everything. Can't predict everything, but when things happen, sometimes they happen very quick. So that's to kind of have a plan that puts both boards in the best situation.
So we'll have to think about how we want to advertise this. Maybe the planning board has some ideas, but we can certainly put it in the mailing on the website. Do you know how many are on our email blast?
No, I'd have to ask that question.
Okay,
On the website notification system, which I don't have access to the emails, only the website owner does. I'd probably have to ask them for a printout. And then create another email list to send out. My agenda distribution goes out to about 50 residents.
that's a start. I mean, that, and there's got to be, there's
There's
got
a
to be
few
at least that many
There's a few
people.
other ways to try to
Yeah.
address it.
We'll
We'll work through.
I don't want everyone to be sitting here thinking that we haven't been trying.
No, I'm sure you have.
We have talked about it, Michael, for as long as you've been here, before you were here, several meetings. And everyone that I've asked who hasn't said no, hasn't shown enough interest to follow up either. So it's, it's not for lack of trying.
Right.
Certainly have asked around.
Politely twisted arms.
Yeah, we're not sitting there going, oh, we're the lords of the manor. That's not what we're doing. Nobody wants to serve on planning board. It is a thankless job, I get it.
I hope you all join me. I'm also gonna do a writing campaign for Ben to join the school board.
That's incompatible. You can't do school board and select board. I know that. You cannot do that.
He doesn't want a life, right?
I don't. I have to answer my wife.
So
Answer, Phil.
we'll see if we can at least put it in turbocharge, whatever you guys have been doing. We'll see if we can do a little help somehow. Right? If we get a couple new people, that'll be good. And maybe you can you and Michael, get everybody up to the point where they feel comfortable with you walking away.
There is a really exciting part of planning board, which is you get to help. You really get to help new businesses come to town. and you really get to help new projects come to town, and that stuff can be really exciting, you know, I mean, I think the planning board, I wasn't at the meeting for it, but. You know, I would imagine that your review of you know, Rob Nelson's project was kind of exciting. I mean, it's, you know, so if people want to see the town develop, they can take a hand on
Yeah.
how it develops.
I guess sort of as a plug, I would say that, the old, sort of concept of how the planning board worked in this town
Yep.
is not how the current planning board works. It's changed dramatically.
Yeah.
A lot of this past year has been spent, Michael's done a lot of work on process and procedure and so.
Wait, you're saying process and procedure is exciting?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
no, it was, look, the whole thing was built around saying no to everybody.
Well, and there was a lot of subjectiveness in planning
Yeah.
board meetings before, and these days. You know, you arrive at the planning board and it's a very sort of factual step through the process. It's laid out very nice. It's easy to understand both for applicants. And for planning board members and people that are there watching the meetings, and I think. We've had some really good meetings because we've done a lot of work on that. And so, you know, even with the applicants where we, you know, denied the application for whatever reason, it's been a really good meeting, and everyone I think has walked away learning something about how the process and the procedure works. It's not just a flat no. You can't do that because we don't want you to, or you know what I mean, whatever the case may be. So we don't have arguments.
Or fights.
No, yeah, I mean, it's. Anyway, it is interesting. If anyone's interested in.
Yep.
Planning.
Good.
It's not as onerous as you might think it is, and it's certainly not as contentious.
That's good. That's good. All right. New business item 5C. Review of the select board bylaws. Kevin, I liked your changes. You're on the order of the agenda.
Yes.
I
You
liked
like
it.
it?
I like,
Oh,
I like
you'd
the
li- I thought you
changes.
said you'd like to change the order. Okay,
No, I liked your changes. It
Oh,
makes, it
yeah.
makes sense to the flow of the day.
that's what I've been trying to think about this past year is taking notes on what I thought might improve efficiency, try to address matters that are, you know, somebody's a guest to our meetings or is here just to do a presentation, making sure they go first
Yep.
instead of having to amend the agenda on the fly. Another one I really thought it was like every time we don't meet on a Monday because of a holiday, I've asked you to, you know, make that a on the record, we're changing the date.
Yep.
Well, if it's just written in your rules and I can move that forward.
Yep.
So there's a few of those types of things within this, but mostly it was just reorganizing the agenda to flow a little better and hopefully get things that are important to the residents who show up or people who want to watch it for a while, get that in there first. And I stuck executive session last. I don't want to have to come out and then do a presentation on anything. So that was the intent. And there were some commas I missed last time I went through this last year. So I fixed those too.
I like going with it makes sense to do the unfinished business before the new business. I like that too.
I mean, the only other thing I thought of was instead of calling it unfinished business, well, because you might not take action. It's just action items, things you would be voting on. But unfinished is fine. As long as it's defined, which it is.
Mhm. And the other changes, you put the fiscal warrants before the town manager report. Just to
Yes.
just kind of wrap everything
Wrapping
up.
up, yeah.
Did anybody have any questions, comments?
I did. I just want to take a moment and say I'm actually really excited about this because this is the very first time I've been on the board where we have bylaws.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
This is a new thing. But it's a much needed and wonderful thing. So I had some more comments, I'm sorry.
Sure, don't
Um,
apologize.
And I'll give you this markup, but I had a couple of things I wanted to maybe just ask about.
Sure,
See if we wanted to talk about. Is now the time to do that?
yeah, that's,
So I guess the first sort of big thing, I changed some mays to shalls and some shoulds to, I hate should.
okay,
But other than that, section 5 on page 2. Offices of the board shall consist of a chair and a vice chair to be chosen annually at the first board meeting. I think that's great. One of the things that sort of came to mind, and don't take this as an indictment, Karen,
Okay,
at all, because it's not about you. But the idea of maybe, and I don't know if you talked about this, but having term limits on the chair specifically,
we haven't,
the idea only because,
you gonna rain on my dynasty?
yeah, exactly. It can be very easy for someone who's
Yes.
been doing it to just everyone say, well, you just do it again. And I kind of went through a period of time where that happened for a long period of time. And I think that that isn't necessarily healthy.
I agree.
I think everyone should take a turn at the helm. It's scary, but you learn a lot.
Mhm.
And so I didn't know if there was interest to inject some language like, no chair shall serve more than, 2 consecutive years out of any 3, and, no more than 3 terms in any 5-year period, or, something like that, so that
Yep.
the hat gets passed around.
Mhm.
It's a very different thing running a meeting versus just participating in the meeting.
It's-
Your focus has to be more on, the order of the meeting and keeping order of the meeting. And so it's as much, I think, to give the chair, who the rest of the board may say, well, they've been doing a fine job, let's just have them do it again. Give that person a break to be the one in the sort of, laid back position, and somebody else take the wheel of having to think about the meeting instead of what they want to say. So that was my thought.
I
And
agree.
I don't have any specific suggestions.
Well, I mean, I think it's a great suggestion. I think. I think the 2 out of 3 is not a bad idea. Because if you're one term member.
Right.
For some reason you did get the chair after your, for some reason, but, it's a good thought.
I like it because
Yeah.
we've seen it elsewhere where somebody can be in there for years and years and years and years. I don't think that's healthy for us.
Yeah, and it's also good if I like the 2 out of 3, because if you are chair for 2 years, assuming that you would be chair for the first 2 years, the last year you'd be not chair, and you'd still have you'd still be able to support who's the new chair,
Right.
right? So there's some continuity to.
That's
to that.
what Joel did.
That's kind of what
You
told it.
stepped down from being chair and was vice chair, and
Yep.
that was a good.
Good suggestions.
what else you got?
What we should be,
We can wait to amend this. We can bring it back on.
Let's bring it back. Can we do
Okay.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'd love to hear what else you have
Okay,
for major things. I can do with the
just-
nays and shalls. later.
that's fine. Just in that same paragraph, it talks about electing the chair, but it doesn't say how the vice chair shall be elected. So the
Yep.
second sentence, the election of chair shall be nominated by a nomination of vote of the current board, and requires no qualifications other than being a duly elected and sworn select board member. Then it doesn't say anything about how you elect a vice chair.
mhm,
So I can just say the election.
The
of
Same
chair
word,
and
same,
vice chair.
same thing, yeah.
chair and vice chair.
Yep.
So another question I had, I don't know if this is going to be popular or not. This is more of it like when it comes around to winter time, starting the meetings at 7, going till 9, even though it says we have a hard cap at 9. How often does that really happen? Would anyone be interested in having a conversation about starting the meetings earlier?
I'd rather not,
Yeah.
personally. It's hard. Getting here at 7, I can do. The few times we've had to be here at 6 has been a real stretch for me. Because of my situation, my wife works a lot of evenings until 7. So, I'll get home from work and have to get dinner on the table before I come to a meeting.
Yeah.
Because she's not home in time to do that, so it's personal preference,
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
is I know it gets dark early, but the 7 o'clock meeting time has been great for me.
Okay.
I don't know how other people feel about it, but it's nice to be able to eat dinner before you come to the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably makes sense, or even 6:30, but I think. The only thing I would say is, I wouldn't do it seasonally, I would just I would just change them.
You know, I wasn't talking
Yeah,
seasonally. I
no,
was
I
just
would-
saying like in the depths of
Yeah,
winter,
yeah.
you get out at 9,
Yeah.
the sun's been down for 5 hours.
It's down when we get here. I don't care.
If there's no, that's fine. I just. With a question. Under that section 9 meetings, there was a couple of places, talks about what business can be done and what business can't be done. It talks about a quorum and what a definition of a quorum is, listed as 3 because we have 5 members,
Mhm.
but it's not consistent throughout the document. Some places it says you have to have 3, and I think maybe just eliminate that and say quorum because we define what quorum is at the beginning.
All in meetings
Yeah,
or elsewhere in the
not
document?
elsewhere. So yeah, in some places it says quorum, in some places it actually says 3 members. And then in here, the last paragraph on that page, it says no business may be conducted. But then in other places, another place, I can't remember at the moment, it says no action may be taken, but it doesn't specifically say that the meeting can't happen unless you have a quorum. So it's like, can you have a discussion or should you have a discussion if you don't have a quorum? And I think we should just be clear, if there's no quorum, there's no meeting.
Right.
There's no discussion without.
There's no meeting without a quorum, period.
No.
No discussion, no action, no nothing.
If 2 people are standing in the parking lot, that's not a meeting, because it's not a quorum.
Right.
So I was just one of the things that consistency would be nice.
Sure.
Under section 11. If logistics requires select board members to execute a document, approve a warrant, or sign an order. And then later it also says, providing an approved order exists. What is an order? It's not defined, and I was confused by that.
Seen that many times. Sometimes order can be defined as a financial decision, or a budget decision, budget order.
My
think
question
this
was
is
just
bold.
whether or not we should throw a definition in
Or throw it out.
or throw it out.
There are also, legal orders that the board can sometimes issue, for example, demolition.
Yeah.
So those would also be included in theirs.
Yeah, but I had no context, so I have no idea what that actually means. And without context, I would think it could mean anything you want.
Define order.
And I was a little confused. I read this one too. It sounds like it says that if you forgot the warrant, for whatever reason, and we stop by the town office to sign it, we've approved it here. If we sign it there, is that all right?
Yes. That is identified in. I think state statute, in addition to, I think there's some language in this document that gives you that. too.
Okay,
You've already approved it, you just need your
Right.
signature for it, then that's fine.
okay.
Yeah, the appeal period runs from the date of vote,
Mhm.
not the date of the signatures.
Okay.
The vote is the important thing for state statute.
So and I don't know if this has been talked about before, but we're still in section 4 executive session.
14. Yep.
14,
Page 4.
sorry, yeah.
Page 4, yeah.
On page 5. Second paragraph. Any violation of this confidentiality requirement shall be deemed to be malfeasance of office and shall subject the offending board member to sanction. What does that mean?
We've talked about that before.
So we have sanction and we have censure. And we sort of define what censure is, but maybe remove sanction. And I don't know. Are they 2 different things? I don't know.
Where was sanction? Where'd you see that?
Last sentence.
Sanctions are flexible. Could be removal from office.
That's great. I don't know what it is. So I didn't know if it needed a definition, I guess is my question. Or if it should be aligned with the censure process or combined into the same thing. And then in section 17, I'm sorry, it's okay.
Yeah.
In section 17, under agenda items, it starts out by saying all material for agenda items shall be under normal circumstances submitted by the board members to the town manager 7 working days prior to any regular or special town meeting. But then later it says, in the event that a matter shall arise which was not submitted to the town manager within the proper time frame, then that item shall be presented to the chair as soon as possible. Why put a deadline?
To be voted on whether or not it could be on the agenda.
Okay, that wasn't clear. So I mean, I guess either make it clear or remove the
Take it out.
deadline.
Well, the preference would be to get it there earlier,
Okay,
but sometimes that doesn't happen. Yeah. I think
Just-
that's why it was in there, is the preference is that things are in there the week before.
So for example, what happened tonight where Tor came and said, can I add this to the agenda? I want to talk about the rehashing the annual town meeting.
Mhm.
And everyone's fine with it. Now, if we have a contentious member doesn't follow the rules and continues to try to add it.
Right.
Hopefully the board would say, no, we're not going to take it up. And we're going to follow our bylaws that say, don't take it up.
okay, it's just the way that it read. It was like, well,
Sure.
the deadline is 7 days, but in the event that you don't meet the 7 days, well, that's fine too.
Only because we're really nice.
And that's totally fine. I love it. That's totally great. We're chill. That's awesome.
But
But
yeah.
if we're gonna
Yep.
say it, I'd rather we said it.
Yep.
So I think its intent to be, if a board member has an item they want on the agenda, they give it to me within 7 days for the meeting, I make sure it gets on the agenda.
Mhm.
If they come to me afterwards, I'll say, well, you gotta talk to the chair. This is outside of my purview because of the bylaws.
Okay, so maybe we could just rework that paragraph to actually like have that process.
That's fine.
All right, so then.
Will be something like, shall be presented to the chair who will determine whether or not time will be made for it at that meeting. I mean, that's what you're
At the
getting
time
at.
of the meeting, or yeah,
Right.
some, yeah, language that clarifies
Yeah.
like, yeah, get your stuff in time. If
Or
there's stuff that if
it's
there's stuff that
subject-
comes up after, then this is the process of how we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't clear on.
And that was the whole point that Joel made last year about adding the submission form.
Yep.
So if a board member had an item, they brought it to you the night of the meeting and said, here's the chair would then make a decision whether or not to, or have a vote of the group to say, are we taking this up too or not?
and sometimes we have a pretty packed agenda and like, we really want to do this too.
Can we just get away? Can we just eject the 7-day thing? I mean, to me, the 7 days, it's not clear either. Is it up to 7 days or within 7 days?
Please don't chuck it.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, but just to have that clarity though,
Okay,
submitted by the board members to the town manager 7 working days prior to the regular special meeting. 12, so, yeah,
I just need it basically the Monday before, so if like tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
I would have needed things by the 17th. At the worst case, the 18th, the morning of the 18th, just to start putting this stuff together.
Yeah.
Right.
And something else I'll bring up during manager report about something I'm gonna introduce next year. Or next fiscal year, which is next month. Wow,
Yep,
what else you got, Ben?
sorry, I got just a couple more.
Don't apologize.
Section 19 under public comment. So the first one says the speakers will be required to identify themselves by stating the name, first and last, and residence, address prior to sharing their comments. So it always seems like a mouthful, and it always seems like you have to do that every single time. Maybe we can just say the first time, since we do record the meeting, and it goes in the minutes that if Mal Carey stands up and says Mal Carey, North Newcastle, he doesn't have to say Mal Carey, North Newcastle for every subsequent public comment on anything on the agenda. He could
in
just,
that same meeting.
in that
Yes.
same meeting,
Yeah.
right? He
That
just,
makes sense.
he did it once, he doesn't have to do it every time. And then it did seem like items 1 through 4 were sort of like, here's sort of the basic rules of how public comments are handled. Items 5 through 8 are really more like how we handle complaints and grievances. And I didn't know it, I didn't know that they belonged there under public comment, if they needed their own section. It really seemed to, and then number 7, I had no idea what it even meant, to be honest with you. Is it a subsection of 6?
It is. I think it's a process.
So if it's a process we're talking about for, you know, complaints and grievances, is it another section or not?
Well, stop sharing, so. Part of my sharing the screen was to show what we're talking about on the screen, but when we have a conversation, I have to remember to stop sharing so that they can see members of the public speak, or the select board speak. I think the challenge of public comment versus complaints, they sort of do belong in one context because it is an item on your agenda. Public comment for items not otherwise on the agenda. You do give the public an opportunity to speak on every item after you've debated and discussed. I don't know if you add something on the agenda that says complaints, or it's at a subsection of public comment. That's why I think those are stuck there. Because they're tied to essentially that piece of your agenda. So the public can come
Yeah.
and say, Kevin, didn't respond to my email for 6 months, or he did and then didn't and then did and then didn't. I don't like it. Okay.
It was a question.
Yeah, I just don't know how to,
Yeah.
like, if we make it another section, then am I adding something to the agenda to reflect that opportunity for the public to speak on, have a comment about complaints? Are complaints different than public comment?
Well, I mean, complaints, I would hope that people would go to you if they have issues.
Right, but if I don't resolve it for them,
Then there's should be a
there
process.
shows a process for them. Is that just part of public comment, or is that a separate component of your agenda?
So, I mean, that's kind of what this is getting at, right?
Yeah,
Is that there probably should be a process for making sure that complaints, not just comments, but comments that come in the form of a complaint are how they're handled and how they're addressed.
So I guess the question to me is, what kind of complaint are we talking about? Are we talking about, to me, I think this is about a complaint about something going on with maybe town administration. Or a member.
just too much salt on the roads.
Yeah, but that's a different kind of. There's also the complaint, oh, the town manager is using his credit card to fly back and forth to Hawaii every other week.
Florida.
Or Florida. There you go. That's a different kind of complaint that probably.
Well, it seems like the distinction I see is personnel complaints versus general town business complaints. I mean, and I think that public comment, general town business complaints is what public comment is for. You know, is for people to sort of air their grievance about how things are being done. But is that the appropriate place to call the town clerk out for, you know, squealing your tires coming out of the parking lot? Or, you know, maybe that's the distinction, is if it's a personnel complaint, there's another venue for that
Yeah,
than just the public comment.
Well, I think that's what this was intended to get at.
Right.
Was that if it's an actual complaint,
Right.
there's a better way to deal with it.
A personnel,
Sure.
okay.
I don't know, again, I don't know how to fix it.
Just thank you for bringing it, the concern to my attention, and I can come back to you. There you go. That's what we have to do. I'll come back to you in 2 weeks with some suggestions.
All right,
There you go.
last thing. No, yep, last thing. Section 20. participation in voting, again, first sentence, it says, it's a double. Any action of the board shall require the affirmation vote of a quorum of its members of not less than 3 members.
Yep, you don't need that right
Don't
now.
need the of not less
Unnecessary to
than
be
3
there.
members.
Yep.
It's not necessary. If we have a quorum, it's a quorum. And then the one sentence that says abstentions shall be limited to conflict of interest, which shall be stated prior to the taking of a vote. My question is, are there not other valid reasons for abstaining from a vote? Are we forcing select board members to vote yes or no on everything unless they have a direct conflict of interest?
We aren't, because if you are not at a meeting and don't want to vote to accept the minutes because you weren't at that meeting, then we've,
Yeah,
people have recused themselves. from
Right.
Voting on that. Or abstain.
and are there not other valid reasons for abstaining from a vote? Are there?
I can't think of any, but
I mean, I
there
guess
might be.
My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they're abstaining from a vote is built in, like it's a tool. It's actually a mechanism. You can vote in the affirmative, you can vote against, or you can abstain from voting for any number of reasons,
For no given reason.
for any given reason or no given reason. And I don't think you have to give a reason.
I think that's true. Makes sense.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense that abstention, you shouldn't be forced to vote. If there's something philosophically. You're. You just,
Conscientious objection.
you just do not need to vote on it. So.
Or even though, you know, it may be covered, you're present at the meeting, but maybe you weren't there for the public hearing, you may not have enough information to feel like when the vote comes down, you have enough knowledge. And a vote, a force of a vote, an educated vote is worse than abstaining, I would think. So that was another question. Is that the only?
It's not, because we've done it. And we've done it in the past on minutes, and I think there's been at least one time when someone didn't vote because they weren't at a workshop. And they didn't feel like they got the information to make a vote on whatever we were working on.
Violated our bylaws?
We did,
Man.
with good reason.
Thank you.
So I think that it's good to have fresh eyes on this, because the rest of
Yeah.
us have been looking at it.
I was excited.
I also did it sitting by a pool, so.
Nice.
Let's see
I
that.
flew myself down with that town credit. card.
Make sure you put that credit card statement in our next warrant, okay, please?
Okay, we need to move on. This is long.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I leave if you guys are all set. I
Thank
wanted
you.
to say
Thanks.
balance.
I think, yeah, we're
Thank you.
good.
Peter,
Thank you,
For
Peter.
being here.
Oh, sure. Have a good evening, guys.
You too.
Take it easy.
All right, 5D rather, a little dyslexia jumping in there. Development of select board goals for fiscal year 2025. Kevin, you kept adding things on.
I know.
And what,
I
no,
can't-
what you kept adding on was what I had on my list to add on.
Oh,
So
sorry.
you you're reading my mind, or I don't know, or we just are all on the same page.
I'm gonna just pull up this on Zoom just to have it.
Which one of your two documents, they seem to have most of the same information. Which
They
one
did.
do you
The only change I made, so I sent you two versions of things. The more recent one, or almost 6 o'clock, or almost 6 o'clock one. It just included the resiliency partnership, and we're gonna talk about that later in the agenda. I added that one as another item. So I'm just gonna pull up the PowerPoint that I threw together, just some slides. So I sent you both a memo that outlines everything that's in the slides already, but just the slides for the public viewing here now. And now everything's online. I send it to the agenda distribution. Everybody has it or should have it. The most recent. New slideshow. Yay. So I just want to recap previous priorities. We've gone through this every quarter. We started in July of last year. We developed a full list of the goals, and then we prioritized those through a couple of surveys and came up with a list of priorities. That was developed July 24th, 2023. So we came up with this. In that process, I also asked you, how long do you think things are going to take? I averaged that out. You know, we talked about 4 months to hire a town manager. Guess what? It worked out to be 4 months before I came on time. Roads and sidewalks, parking. I thought it would take a lot longer. It didn't. Well, actually, we did make one more modification in November, so that worked out too. But what I learned about roads specifically is a responsibility to the select. It's not a legislative body town meeting ordinance. It is strictly your responsibility. It doesn't even say anything about having to hold a public hearing, but we did hold a public hearing, and then you guys approved an ordinance there. We repealed the bidding ordinance and replaced it with a policy. That was in December, so it was a lot shorter than, and I also said, I don't want to be focusing on more than 3 things at a time if I can help it. I was working on other things in the background, but the focus was on those top 3 things at all times. Things moved pretty quickly. So when we looked at it again in October of 2023, we had accomplished the top 3 things and the fund balance policy. And then we revised in November 27th, 2023, we revised our timeline of the priorities to match something more like what I was experiencing working with this board and the community to get things done. So this was a closer representation of what I've been hoping to have happen. As you can see, the downtown traffic planning, which is your village partnership initiative, that is going to extend out till probably late fall. The comp plan modifications implementation, Michael and I got a little sidetracked with shoreland zoning and core zoning code, and then the moratorium in May. But we will get back to finishing that, bringing some suggestions forward. You had seen in January or February, you had seen sort of what we were missing for doc information. I don't think we've had a chance to really delve into that much. Michael, no? No. Okay. So that's still out there. Ordinance and policy housekeeping, we continue to work through it. You'll notice in my memo, I do point out that we're a few months behind on that as well. So at our next meeting, I hope to just present to you one that slides everything over a little bit so we can keep working towards that. Core zoning code updates, we focused on LD 23 this session for the annual town meeting that got approved. Shoreland zoning, that also was a focus on state requirements, and that got approved. So I feel good about that movement. DR 4719, that's the Mayday storm from last year. 4 of the 5 requests for funding have been approved by the federal government and are now sitting with the state. So I'm waiting for a check from them from about $106,000. Just waiting, occasionally sending a, hey, don't forget about us, email. And then the final one is the large replacement of the culvert on Lynch Road. That is currently sitting with environmental and historic preservation. They just need to finalize the review. The federal government is going to give us a check for $1.3 million to help cover that. State has a share of that as well. We'll be on the hook for about 10% of the total cost of what I hope will be the bridge that we've gotten design done. We're just waiting. We are just waiting for that process to finish so that we can request the use of those funds for a bridge replacement. So I'm towards the end of this in terms of it being the FEMA project. The next step will be sort of the oversight of the actual event of it getting replaced. Fish ladder agreement has sort of been stalled. We tried to meet with a third party to sort of take over responsibility for it. Wasn't much interest at this time. So now this next step was working with Noblesboro. They have not taken any action. Our decision was to develop something, draft something, give it to them and see where the way it went with it. Right now, I'm just sitting. Well, that's unfortunate, but town property maintenance schedule, I didn't have a chance to get to that yet. Housing development strategy, the only thing Andy and I have worked on was drafting a grant and submitting a grant for funding for first responder housing. And helping us identify spots in both Newcastle and Damascotta that could be used as affordable housing for first responders and doing some site plans for those. So we still haven't heard whether or not we received that grant or not. And then town office relocation strategy, another item I haven't touched. But that says that I'd start in July of this year. So I'm still on schedule for that.
Yay.
But, part of this, and then in March, we reviewed this and kept those things the same. And as you can see, I crossed off the core zoning and shoreline zoning because we had those in the process and those got approved. So what's currently underway, Village Partnership Initiative, still on the comp plan stuff, ordinance and policy housekeeping, Lynch Road minor span, and the moratorium now is also on our to-do list. So I identified these 5 items as, these are things we're still working on. None of them take up all day, every day, but they are items that are on our constant reminder list. What I'd like to get from this group is, I assume these are things you still want to see done, so we're going to keep them on the to-do list. There are a lot of other things that you guys have identified in the past and throughout the course of this year, I've heard and written down, and hopefully I got most of them onto this list for other things that we need to consider. And I broke it up on the PowerPoint slides and the memo. It's all there on one page. It's page 6 of the memo I sent you. That has everything in there. And so what I'm hoping to get from tonight is, what else would you like to see added to the list of goals? So I have a comprehensive list of it. Maybe there's some clarification of what's on there that you might want to ask tonight, so I can rephrase it so I know what we're talking about. Should we develop the list of items as short-term or long-term? And I'll ask that question as part of the survey question, as well as can it be done in your thoughts on whether or not this should or could be done in-house versus hiring someone else to help us achieve them. Because with, I'd say, nearly 40 items to consider, not going to be done in a year.
Nope.
It'd be nice to know, what can we squeeze in that are short-term versus those that are long-term. Like BPI is still something we have to check in on regularly to make sure that we're going to get it done. And even just making sure we schedule another public outreach
Right.
after we get the data is something that has to stay on the radar screen for us.
Mhm.
Although it, from now till February, or I'm sorry, now till September, there might not be crickets from them.
Right, they're doing
Right.
study.
So there's,
the
things we
traffic.
can
Mhm.
tuck in and work on
Yep.
in the interim.
I had a question on one of them. I can't remember why we have this on here. Funding for broadband. We've already got that.
Yeah, thank you. We can take that one
Take it
off,
off.
but
It's-
it was on there last year and I didn't know what
I think that
we
one's
did
all,
achieve that last year, sort of. The
the
stars
project's
aligned.
going.
We start as the stars aligned. We moved the funds and
Yep.
we paid Tidewater to help us get the
Yep.
80+ residents who are underserved served,
Mhm.
or will be served when they get to them. They're in the process of putting those lines up now.
I don't know why else that would be in there. Does anyone have any other recollection?
The funding for broadband?
Yeah.
No, that was just because it was.
All right.
We finished.
Great. I
You
can
have
cross that
39
off.
now.
So are you you're on list of goal remaining?
The-
Yeah, okay, so.
Yep.
move the slide.
I
I don't think we need historic preservation ordinance.
for long term, just eventually down the road or no?
Which,
Oh, just
Well,
address it to the zoning.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's other items on the
Or
original
zone.
list. I mean, we didn't have a timeline when we disbanded the preservation committee. I just don't think. We may visit it and we can repropose it.
Did I still have it on one of those other lists?
Yeah, that's
Oh.
right there.
Oops. Sorry.
Should we talk about some of them now before we vote on them? Just for clarification, for instance, the Community Resilience Partnership. There's a lot of money out there for us to do some smaller projects in town that we can get grants for. And if we don't move that up with the priority list and don't do anything, we won't get the money and then can't do some of these things. Like if we're considering putting solar on this building, there's money out there to do that. Versus if we don't, and 2 years later, we want to do it, it's all on us. We're not going to get 50 grand or whatever it is to help us pay for that. So I know there's some things we can do. Projects, I think we maybe need to explore what the list of them is. But I know like Damascott is replacing all their lights with LEDs and that's getting covered. It's getting paid for.
Mhm.
Which we did.
Right. So, I mean, but there's
You've
other,
done that element.
Right.
The
but I mean, that kind of
Generating
thing,
your own solar energy.
that's something, there was also, I know heat pumps, well, we just did that too.
Yeah,
But there
one of
might
the
be
other-
other things.
Well, one of the other items I noticed on here was the EV stations, charging stations.
Yeah.
And that's something that can be paid for with the resilience.
Just
part,
even just a study of it
where to put it
and right.
or
Something-
installing.
And
Does
it's,
that fall sort of into the downtown development strategy? I mean, are those,
well, this is part of the community. So I was saying the community resilience partnership is
Oh,
where the
there-
money
there's money available.
to
for it.
do these things. And if we,
Okay.
yeah, if we make that a little higher in our priority list to go after some of these things now while
Yeah.
there's money for them, it would benefit the town.
Understood.
And they do kind of fall into some of the other ones too,
Yeah.
but where there's funding is a kind of an added bonus.
So what kind of item does that? Boil down to?
Well, we have community resilience partnership listed right here as
Yeah.
one of our things that,
Well, we're with the resolution approval tonight, we will become members of that.
Right.
And then it's a matter of just spending some time writing grants
Mhm.
or applying for that program. And that, Michael, do you remember the deadline is probably in the fall for the
Yeah.
next grant round?
I believe it's in the fall.
I think that's what I remember.
I think
too.
like due by December, I think is the deadline for the next grant. So it is something that can be fit in.
Mhm.
Short term, it doesn't take long to write one of those grants, and I'm pretty sure our current service providers will assist us in the process.
We just have to decide what we would want to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the board's participation. That's part of that process.
I think that's. The getting into the grant program is kind of a rolling thing, so, which I'm sure we'll talk to, and then. Assuming that it's the same situation that Damascotta had. The service providers will also help us write the. Help us write the grant. And that I think was in September, and then. They, depending on what grant you go for, they even are trying now to get money to administer the grant process. So I mention that because if it's something that you can kind of offload to have someone else do it and have then someone else pay for it. Like, you know,
Easy.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't take any bandwidth from staff.
It just is a matter of us deciding what projects we want to go
Right,
for funding on.
right.
So can you present to us what projects are available under that grant program so that we can,
Some samples.
be a good place to start?
Is there anything even printed with some sample?
It's all in
projects?
it's in your January 8th packet. All the different opportunities are.
That's right. There was a list of
when-
what some other
when we
towns
were-
had done.
When we were bringing on, when we were looking to bring on Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission and Coastal Rivers Conservation Trust as the service providers, we wrote a letter of support. And in that letter of support, we said we would work to become members as well if they were chosen as our service providers. And in all that documentation from January, there's lots of examples. And we did create a website that has the presentation from the June 1st meeting, which also gave some examples of projects that other towns in Maine have done.
Mhm.
So, you know, tell me this is going to rise to that level of where you want to tackle it next month. And I'll bring more of those examples of things and you guys can say, this is what we want you to getting the application for.
I mean, they did bike lane studies and, I can't even remember now. There were just a lot of good
EV
things.
charging stations, solar roof on roofs.
Little, what are those little generators called that? So if we have power outages, there are little, like you can check them out, little generators that we can loan to residents who don't have power. That would be covered under that. It's just lots of things related to climate change and
Resilience.
resiliency, right? The havoc it can wreak. So,
There's a list, but, and when, there's a list that they give that if you pick one of those things, or that is pretty close, $50,000 is the max, and it's like 100%. There's no match for the grant. You can do other things, but then there may be a match. And there was the checklist that we went through, self-evaluation, which had a bunch of. They weren't projects, they were just like items that they were asking the town, to say like, have you done any of this? So like, that's easy place to start thinking about, so.
Yeah.
Yes, it probably was all in January. Is that what you said?
The self-assessment, I gave, the board looked at that in, I'll say April. You have there's another meeting, I can't remember the exact date, but I think it was in April when I shared the draft self-assessment that we used to then populate for the June 1st
Mhm.
conversation.
Yep.
I'll make sure you all have the link to those things. So I'll bring
That's
it
good
back up.
stuff. So do we want to just talk about some things before we
What
vote
else?
on-
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
this is a good opportunity to at least, vie for what you're interested in to see if you can sway some of the other select board members, because really the process, I think, for this will be, and I'll just finish the slide so I can show you what I'm thinking of. So knowing the complete list of goals. So if there were other things, want to add more to the flyer, go for it. But with the full list, I'll share that in survey. And I'd ask you to rank your top 10. And I'd also ask, is this short-term, long-term? And can this be completed in-house, or will this require external expertise, either grant funded or to be built into a budget? So examples, just as we talked about, community resilience partnership, having the service provider assist us through that process and also helping us administer the grant. Obviously, I have capable staff to do that, and the capacity within staff to help manage grants. If that's one thing we want to be focusing our attention on, is chasing down federal or state money, I'm fine with that, but it didn't specifically say grant research and opportunities as an item. That could be a goal. But I just putting it out there. And then, so with the information that I get from you, probably next week, I'll then populate a priority list, and then you guys can either jockey for moving some things around. One of my thoughts is list the top 5, and then also list, your top 1 that isn't part of that top 5. And that way each of you have some real skin in the game and making sure that these things get done in the next year. Because I think of the initial 10, I think we finished 7.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty good
Good.
about
Mhm.
what we've
You
achieved.
said it like you're beating yourself up, like fail.
Yeah, I
You
did.
didn't-
I
No,
failed.
No.
70 is
7 out
not
of 10 is
failing.
fantastic.
70%.
Yeah, it's 70%. I'm good. Good C.
Yeah, well,
Passes.
So
if we didn't have that list, I don't think it would be 7 out of 10. So
2, maybe.
I'm looking at the list of goals, and there, to start with, the explore public works department for the future, right? That's something that has been on this list and that we've sort of talked about a little bit. That combined with town office relocation strategy, town property maintenance schedule, what else? Sand salt shed locations. There's a cluster of things that maybe needs to be addressed
together.
together, and maybe it's, I don't know if that's you form a committee to tackle that, but I think that, that instead of doing all of those items, and maybe there are a few others that I'm not seeing right now, but road assessment inventory, like if we could group some of these together into a committee, or a comprehensive sort of plan, we might get a lot farther on all of them.
Mhm. Well, a lot of them kind of they
There's a lot of
they
overlap.
influence
And they influence each
other.
other.
Yep.
Exactly. So rather than, prioritizing one over the other, maybe it's let's put this group over here and make it a priority in itself. I don't know how you could.
Just more work.
Well, you're just saying there's subsections of
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's categories.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
there's categories within it,
categories.
but then it's,
And then maybe you make that category and then you prioritize within that category.
There's also stuff that can be handed off without really prioritizing to committees we already have.
Like,
Create a Parks and Rec department with activities for children and families goes really well with more strategic use of Harriet Bird Clubhouse and Playground.
Hmm.
We have committee already,
Yes.
and we could take those and say, I spoke to someone and I cannot remember their name, and it wasn't you.
Tuh.
And they
well, I'm
were,
glad you remember my name.
yeah, it was not you. And they were going on about Parks and Rec. Why don't we have a park? Why don't we have any playground equipment? And I said, hasn't risen to the top of the list. And they said, this is why I'm kicking myself. I would be on that committee.
Yeah.
So when I remember who it is, I'm gonna pin that person down and say, okay, you can be our Leslie Nope. Go see Kevin.
I mean, you can talk to the Harriet Bird Clubhouse Committee, but expanding their mission, their focus, is another, whether they would.
They're very much interested in having that larger outreach conversation.
They
I'm
are,
actually
yeah.
very excited about
Excellent.
the sort of re-energized group. And I kick myself because I do have someone in addition to the 5, they want to expand up to 7. So they have somebody else, Derek Burney. The other side of the kids. Derek is probably my age, somewhere around my age, has his own kids and has some visions about what he'd like to do. And he'd like to serve as chair of that committee. So, and I neglected to include that as one of your appointments. So you can always modify tonight and do that, or you can wait till next meeting.
do we have anybody that's not in Sheepscot Village on that committee?
Not currently.
Right, so if we did, and
But-
if we did give them or ask them to take on a larger role, I think we'd have to expand their membership a little bit.
I mean, they're very much interested in having that community
Good.
conversation and
It's excellent.
sort of spearheading that effort to get that outreach done. So we can have a more, and I did, like I gave them what the comp plan said about, the use of the Harriet Bird, and it did talk about more use of it and more use of the roughly 8 acres that are out.
Yeah.
So I think they're interested in doing some visioning.
Good.
Of the space and trying to engage with more of the community that way. So I think that, yes, you're on to the idea that some of this stuff is really related and it can be narrowed down to, I don't know, a list of 20 things, but at least it helps then say, I'm going to spend some more time with the Harriet Bird Committee so that we can get to a place where we're having those outreach community meetings. Like Village Partnership Initiative. Again, it's still staff making sure that the meetings happen and that someone there from staff to take notes and make sure that action items are drafted and brought forward to whatever board has to approve it, or it's in the potential for the budget for the next year, those types of things. That's a good example too, Ben, just talking about more strategic use of Harriet Bird, tying in Parks and Rec, how that might
Yeah.
blend together better in the future.
Mhm.
I don't know, are there other ones you can think of right now that,
What is understanding utility capacity?
I think that was a comment that came out of last year's,
The housing
Conference.
development.
right, so
Right,
where,
that-
where can sewer go, water
Okay.
go? Where's their electrical capacity to accommodate those things? Obviously, there's some challenges still with the district in knowing what they're willing to participate in expansion or how, or upgrades to the system. I mean, the concern they have is they don't really want to expand and then have to increase the cost for all of the rate payers. So how do you come up with a way to do that?
Mhm.
Well,
User
tax increment financing program springs off the page.
boom. So maybe that, and they were sort of tied together initially. I separated them out because it's important to understand where capacity needs are already at the max versus.
But that should maybe come before developing housing, the housing development strategy should maybe fall, figure out where it makes sense to put houses before you decide that's where you want to put houses.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, the housing thing is. Pretty low priority at the moment. And I'm saddened to say that because those of us that have been paying attention to it for half a decade now know that there's no silver bullet. There's no silver.
Yeah.
And so putting a lot of eggs in that basket when there's other things that we can do that work towards that is probably a lot more better use of time. Because if we got another committee together, we just churn our wheels and not accomplish it.
And I don't think the committee's solution to some of these is the right answer anyway,
Yeah.
but I mean, the select boards from both Damascotta and Newcastle met last fall, again in January, but in the fall, we talked about what do we jointly want to be keeping at the top of the priority list? And it really is, what can we do about trying to address housing? And I throw that out there and it's just a huge,
It's too big.
right, it's too big an issue to address, but if we can tackle these one-offs, like there was a grant opportunity that Andy and I got together on and threw that out there. If that stays as a priority for managers, it stays at the forefront. Housing was one, making sure that we're in sync about our development in our downtowns, working together. And then the transportation was the other top one. But again, they're all very big, broad
Yes.
goals without a lot of prioritized goals within that.
Small obtainable goals within the
Right.
larger.
Right,
overarching.
right. So
Well,
do you want me to come back to you with trying to group this first?
I think that's
Before that?
smart. Because if you have a group, then you can see what it makes sense to tackle first in that.
Because some of these are sort of one-offs, like the cell tower I keep pushing off just because I've got too much on my plate. And it wasn't on my top priority, but it's something they continue to bug me about.
Downtown development strategy and tax increment financing program go hand in hand. Short-term rental ordinance goes under housing development strategy
Mhm.
and probably before it. Things like that. But the big ones, right? We haven't talked about initiating a charter commission, which, in light of the comment from Roger at town meeting, of course, comments at the beginning of the meeting. As much as we all may respect and revere the form of government that we have, it's hard to argue that it's effective anymore when we don't have the participation. And so initiating a charter commission to start asking those big questions, I think is important to do sooner rather than later. I mean, we can keep bundling things into ordinances and at some point it's just gonna look like a box of Band-Aids that we should really just organize into a charter, and doing a charter affords us a lot of latitude that Title 38 doesn't. We'd have, ironically, more freedom if we had a charter to make decisions about how we want things to happen in town. I don't think a lot of people know that. And I think we have to, as well as trying to do as much outreach as we can to get people to come to town meeting, the reality is they show up in November. Or they show up when there's a really contentious item. And otherwise, the day-to-day humdrum of most of the rest of the stuff on these lists are things that,
Most people don't get excited about.
well, people don't get excited about. Yeah, so. Yeah. So I don't know that it has to be, this year. I'd put it as a long term, but it needs to be started or it'll never get started.
It's like the Village Partnership Initiative, finally.
Yeah.
How generally, is it a 1 year, 18-month project when
Once you
towns
pull
do
the
that?
trigger, it's actually less than a year.
To pull all the whole thing together?
You have to, there's a whole thing about how to do a charter committee. And I'm not even necessarily suggesting that we do it this year.
Right.
I think my suggestion would be that we prime the pump for next year. And sort of do some education and some research and some understanding about what it might mean. There are other towns around here that have charters. We can look at those and understand what it means. So that at least, we're educated about what a charter could do for the town. And then when we pull the trigger and say, okay, let's form a charter commission. What does everyone think about that? There's a whole thing in state law about how to go about doing that, sort of out of our hands. That
It is a standalone issue, so there's no lumping that with anything else.
no.
No, we've got a comment.
Ben, may I ask, do you know of the towns within our circle that are chartered?
Then Scott's charter.
Oh, is it really? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Although they kept the select board form of government in their charter.
I'm not just talking about form of government. So when you, we don't have to go into it now. I think it should be, I think it should be up on the list. I'm not gonna go
Yep.
into it. Great question. More later.
Damascata.
In that same sort of vein, big things. I want to kind of put a second on begin the conversation about a public works department. If it doesn't begin, it doesn't ever get started.
Yeah, and that's not specifically on here,
It is.
right?
Yeah.
I can't find it. Where is it?
On the last,
Explore developing public works department for the future. I'm not sure what
I might,
document you're looking at.
looking at the document, not this PowerPoint, so maybe it's on the.
Yeah, I'm looking at on page 6 of the document,
Yeah.
middle section.
There's a lot that has to be pulled together to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And there's
Oh, I see it.
a lot of conversation about strategy around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
again, it's,
a lot of these other items roll into that nicely.
Mhm.
Oh, the develop a townwide recreation trail network, including a river walk, goes really well
Yep.
into the creative Parks and Rec.
yes, yeah, that's 3 for Parks and Rec.
There's 3 for that.
I think I can
You can
work
probably do
to
that.
pull some things together that clean up the list of 40, or I just throw a number 40 out there.
Into a list of 12 or
12,
15.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you guys can prioritize those. All
Okay.
right.
And I think that, the VPI, the eventual conversation I think we should have about a TIF district in the downtown. And then, the realization that we've all come to, which is that we've sort of outgrown our town office. There's no room. And we're sort of up against it. And then understanding that if we want to develop our town office is sitting on a prime piece of real estate, generating 0 tax dollars, which seems a little silly. That should also be a conversation.
Yeah, we've also talked about in that kind of conversation, land, town needs land, but we don't really have any developable land, so salt shed, public works department,
Mhm.
town office, it's, those things require real estate. So the question is where's that happen? Yeah.
All right.
Last thing I want to say, real quick, because we've got Michael here, and I just wanted to relay a little portion of the conversation that Michael and I shared last week about comp plan, which is the unfortunate reality that we've spent years now trying to get state approval for a comp plan that was passed in 2018 You're supposed to do a comp plan every 10 years.
That's two thousand
So next year,
fourteen
we
when
should begin the
when we
process of redoing our comp plan if we were gonna actually do it.
started on this.
So,
That's depressing.
that's depressing. We got nothing done with it again. And unfortunately, this time it really wasn't our fault. It was the state who has just apparently filed it in the void of nothingness. It's never gonna come out of. We can't hear from them. So, or they're ignoring us. I don't know. So the question, I think, does become how much time and effort do we put into what we have versus gearing up for what we need to do?
Think you have a gorgeous comp plan. Let me just say that.
Thank you for saying that.
I think you have a gorgeous comp plan with a lot of really good recommendations and ideas in it. And your town puts so much time into bringing people in. I don't think you throw it out.
Well, so that was-
All we're trying to do with the state is make sure that, and this is regulatory from a department made up this list of things that you have to comply with in order to win the game. Your comp plan didn't follow this exact process. So now we've had to go back and say, oh, no, it is here. It's just on this page. And no, it's not here. It's on this page. And no, it's here on this page. Yeah, some of the demographic information or data that they wanted to be included in your comp plan wasn't. But I don't think you should disregard what has been done.
I'm
at
not
all.
advocating that at all. And in
Okay.
fact, I'm not advocating.
Okay.
that.
Love to work to implement the things that are currently in your.
What I was actually getting at was, that was the doom and gloom.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Yeah. The other side of it was
As my
the,
kids say, you're yucking on my yum.
yeah, I'm yucking the yum.
Yeah.
Is that, the realization that we had was like, maybe we should just stop chasing the state. It's been a year since you created that matrix. We haven't heard anything back.
Yeah, more.
More than a
I
year.
submitted it. I submitted it when I was
January.
still with NCOG in January.
23.
Year and a half since we did everything they asked us to. I think it's time we make the decision to move on and do it for us, not for them, and actually start doing some of the things. And the realization we had was that, yeah, absolutely right. We don't need to throw it out like we did the last two comp plans.
Yeah.
We just need to
Update.
just do a little update. And so that may not be as big a deal as a whole new comp plan process all over. But it's a different push.
I mean, we should definitely revisit data. And,
Yeah.
That stuff. I think that's good. I don't see us chasing some state imposed process because it's like beating a dead horse until the state changes and all of a sudden we get sort of some sense that, oh, their planning department is really on top of things and
Right.
when people are sending in comp plans, they're reviewing it in 2 weeks and getting right back to them. Then I'll be more interested in sort of jumping into comp planning, but
Yeah.
if we're just doing it for ourselves, yeah, I mean, it's a good review and it always is good to take a look at those things, of course, so. But yeah, I don't think there's wholesale changes. I think it's just more of a, oh, well, look what we were thinking of. And that was a dumb thought.
Yeah, right. So,
10 years ago, what were we thinking? Yeah, well, those conversations should be had.
but they don't necessarily have to happen even this year. I guess is what I was kind of getting at. It's like,
That's why the list, keep everything on our
Yeah.
radar. So, all right, in the interest of, we're in violation of one of our rules already. It's after 9, so let's if we can move on to 6A, the climate workshop resolution, that's a quick one. The resolution. I'm trying to find it.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Second it.
Yes, thank you. We don't have to read this whole thing. Please.
You have to.
Good, thank you. All right, does anyone want to discuss it?
Whoa,
Oh, listen to that rain. Chris, you better stay here. You're gonna get washed away. You better stay here. I don't want you to get washed away. Okay, All in favor of the resolution? Yes. Passes 5-0.
I was gonna say that whereas there has 5 bolded items on it.
Yeah.
Infrastructure resilience, emergency preparedness for Newcastle and our community, mitigation of invasive species, preservation of biodiversity, land and water resources, equitable community education and outreach. Those really came out of the workshop with the roughly 20 residents who attended on that beautiful Saturday.
It was
afternoon.
beautiful.
I'll put a plug in for emergency management plan
Mhm.
as one
Oh,
of the priorities.
Priorities.
Mhm.
We have nothing, huh?
Hmm?
We have nothing?
We do not. We follow what the county has developed,
Mhm.
but which is fine. It's just there are things that we need to at least identify within our own town. But it's on my to-do list. I just want to make sure
Well, and that's part of the community resilience.
it
It's-
is emergency
it's-
preparedness for Newcastle and our community.
I spent 10 years with the Red Cross. We got nothing here.
Yeah.
That's what the Red Cross does, is identifies where we can have shelters.
Yep.
And we don't have a relationship and we need to. All right, then, let's see, item 6B, budget adjustments.
Colin, did you already vote?
We did 5-0.
Right, sorry. I'm losing.
You were thinking, oh no, I gotta say,
Right.
okay. So our budget adjustments, Kevin, you wanna talk to that?
I do, real briefly. That there's 38.5. I asked this board to approve me signing a contract. I've signed the contract. They're gonna get started on the bridge work. I also realized, looking at Public Works budget, I'm worried that where I was going to pull money and finally having a conversation with the road commissioner, he said, well, I did intend to spend that 20,000 on the bridge. I'm going to have to do it at some point. So I rethought it and I said, maybe I'll just ask the board to move some budgeted monies from certain accounts across the board into that tech assistance account to pay for it. And this is based on where we are in the year. The end of the year is next week,
Mhm.
or the end of this week. And this was just an opportunity to just move that money and have it available to pay for out of tech services. Keeping 10,000 in there because I need it to, as a part of a carryover for next meeting, I'm going to ask you to pull the money from current budget into the next budget, as you've been allowed to do in your annual town meeting, because we need that additional tech assistance monies to do a survey on Glidden Street when they're done with the tearing it up,
Mhm.
so that we can determine if we can do parking and or sidewalks along that stretch. This comes back to downtown development work. So what do we want our downtown to look like? Some of that money will be used to do a proper survey on Glidden Street.
And this money that we move it's not gonna get expended in the next couple days. So this will have
It
to
will
move
come on your warrant. No, it's already been,
Oh, okay.
it's either in your warrant this time or it will be next time. There's one more warrant pull from FY 24 in July.
Okay.
And everything else that's going to be spent for FY 24 will come out of that last.
So these transfers, these transfers of accounts or line items. I wasn't here.
Mhm.
How much, if any, had we transferred from line item to line item and in this past year,
0,
then it's not going to exceed the 3%,
2%.
2%.
Yeah, which I gave you the number at the bottom there.
38.
So this would fall under FY 24
Not
for the
affect,
2%.
yep. Not touches FY
not
25.
effective 25.
Nope. And transfer of money or carry forward doesn't affect that either.
But so that's why I was questioning you, because you're phrasing it as a transfer.
Mhm.
And it is a transfer.
It's a transfer of money. Carry forward is
And then
keeping it
it'll
in
be
the
a
same
carry
line,
forward.
in the same account line.
Correct.
You're just saying, don't allow that 10,000. So the tech assistance, I'm asking you to bump it up to 48.5.
Mhm.
38.5 is being spent now to get the bridge done as part of FY 24 budget.
Yeah.
Already signed for the contract for them to do that. The other 10,000 that'll be sitting in there, I'll ask you at your next meeting, carry forward in that account line from FY 24 to 25. What that does is it basically says, don't let that 10,000 just fall to the unassigned fund balance where then we have to reappropriate it at a special town meeting. You can carry those monies forward as you were given authority to do it in.
And
Right.
this technical assistance, Ben wasn't here. This is for the South Darneck Bridge
Yeah, the 38.5 is for the
Yes.
South Dire Neck Bridge, the,
Structural
we did the
evaluation.
load testing.
load testing, yeah.
Load testing, because that was,
Yep.
back in January, that bridge was, or December, I got a letter from the state saying, we're posting your bridge to 30 tons. And it was only posted because state, because the guidelines shifted. And therefore, based on their rating system, it no longer met, just on paper.
Got it.
So, but if we do the load testing and take it back to the state, they have a committee
Mhm.
that reviews these things.
Yep.
That will likely be lifted.
Got it.
Right, so
I'm
can,
gonna make a motion
oh, I was gonna say, can we just do it as presented instead of reading all of these?
as written.
As written, yeah.
I'm gonna make a motion to move 22,500 from budget as written in the possible motion in the packet for a total transfer of $38,500.
Does that satisfy?
Yeah.
You need, okay, and any other discussion?
Mhm.
All in favor? Okay, passes 5-0. Last thing, well, other than the board and Kevin's report, the last thing on unfinished business is the town office hours policy. Did everybody get a chance to read? They kind of compromised on.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And the reason I suggested Tuesday is because one, I have no problem staying later, but usually Michael does later hours those days too. And if I'm asking one of my clerks who do the front window to be there, I don't want them to be there alone.
Right.
And I won't. So if I can't be there, maybe Michael will be, and I will be there Tuesday if it's possible. to be there.
Anyone have any comments, questions on that?
Make a motion to adopt the town office hours policy
Oh.
as presented.
One had a quick question.
Yes, I'll make it quick. My only concern is when you take Fridays away, when I'm looking at the holidays. There's a lot of Monday holidays and there's also a lot of other holidays that could even fall on Friday. So if they fall on a Friday, now it's in the policy that these people get these holidays. So like June, so say, Christmas falls on
Friday,
Friday.
right?
So do they then get a different day off that week too, along with the Friday?
That's a very good question.
Because a lot of these holidays could potentially.
Personal
I
policy.
thought that was already in the personal policy.
It's in the draft and personal.
Well, and the Friday after Thanksgiving. That's not.
I mean, there's already 6 Monday holidays, which they're gonna be off. And then, and plus the snow days, and I just worry that, you know. And I've always worked either for myself or in healthcare, so I've always worked in a pretty much a 24/7. So I have a hard time when, you know, everybody, and I get it, this is a new generation of people, I deal with it every day. That don't wanna work as much, but the town office is there for the people, and the people need to be able to get there and do it, and sometimes. You know, it's hard, and when we take a day away, but then we take another day away too, because it's a holiday, pretty soon. The town office appears to not ever be open.
Oh,
So-
until 6 PM twice a month.
Yeah, but that's very nice, that's very nice. And it's open a little earlier, although.
Yep.
You know, 7:30, if I gotta be to work at 8, it's still, I don't know how much that's really gonna help.
I'm pretty
Maybe
sure
if
that
it was 7, but I think 7:30, when you gotta be to work at 8. If you work anywhere outside of town.
Yeah.
It isn't gonna be real helpful. I do
Well-
appreciate it's still 36 hours, but.
I think the 7:30 works for people who don't have rigid. Timeframes.
But I'm just really concerned about the holidays and how that works because a lot of those, they're gonna fall on Fridays. Eventually, they're gonna fall on Fridays.
Yeah, what's the, how is it gonna affect
So
our
what-
policy?
I thought it was that they wouldn't get another day off. They just get paid for the paid holiday. So if Christmas falls on a Friday, they get the day off.
They have it anyway.
They have it anyway.
But-
They don't get another day off. They get paid for that holiday.
Even though it's a day they wouldn't normally work.
Correct.
Or would that throw me off?
Work hours. Everywhere, I know everywhere I've worked, a holiday or vacation doesn't count towards your worked hours. Overtime.
Overtime's after 40 worked hours.
Correct.
not,
Works.
yeah, okay.
That is correct. Yeah, and overtime and compensation specifically states that. Work means that there were no holidays or vacation time in that week, saying pay in excess of 40 hours.
Right.
If I have a board, if I have a staff member who goes a 40-hour staff person. They work the front desk that's open to the office for 36 hours. That doesn't mean they're not there early and they're not staying later to finish things up. Once they go over 40, then I give them comp time, but not usually. So, for example, the elections,
Yeah.
where they were here for, I think, almost 16 hours.
2 work days.
I will let them have some comp time over that 40 hours, but there's no overtime anymore because everyone's confidential and full-time.
Okay, so just for clarification, then they would not get an extra day off. They would get paid on a Friday.
They get paid on a Friday if it's a holiday, which is just part of their normal work. So
They don't
get-
work that.
Right, but it's a
Well, even
holiday,
if
so
the
that we're
holidays
just,
On a Saturday, they get.
they're getting
Paid for.
paid for 40 hours of work,
Yeah, the only
not for
time-
days,
Right.
not for hourly rate and then on a certain.
Right, yeah. The only way that would line up is if it's on a, basically a nationally recognized holiday.
If what is.
If they're getting paid for the day off that they're not working any. It'd have to be on the list of those
Oh, the national
11 or
holidays,
12
yeah.
days that are,
A Monday.
Yeah.
They're getting paid for the 9 hours that they're not working.
I'll second towards the motion.
Any other discussion? And Roger, something, and this is something we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
It's not written in stone.
It's a policy that you as a board may modify at any time.
I'm still stuck thinking the town office is closed on Wednesdays.
No,
No, that's Damerscott.
No, we were closed on Wednesdays for a long time.
Oh, you were.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
but I still have to ask, what day is it? It was Wednesday? Oh, we're closed. No, we're not closed. That was 15 years ago, so.
That was always the day I showed up. to do
Yeah, no,
business.
what's going on
Always
here?
a Wednesday.
Roger, do you have something?
Well, my thought was that in order for this 2 6 o'clock days to work, it's gotta be well advertised, because forever this has not happened.
Right.
So if you don't put it in the paper, or you don't put a sign on the door, or we don't.
We had the
It's not gonna
sign, we had the
work.
sign outside that
That's
says we're
actually-
open till
I don't
6
know if you
tonight.
noticed there, Roger, but that, the sign is on our priority list. It is on there. It's on there. I just want to know that.
Priority list.
And,
Okay.
and we have already drafted a notification.
We went down the sign route once before.
It's not well, electronics not well received.
It was shot down vehemently.
For what kind of sign? What do you mean?
An
Electronic,
electronic sign, just like all the other ones we're talking about.
So,
At an annual
Yeah.
town meeting.
No,
No.
no, it didn't even get there because we had people in here yelling
Don't
that
put
it was
them
gonna
up.
cost too much. So,
well, this is gonna be a cost, no question.
oh, I'm not gonna tell you how much my new sign just cost me. You don't wanna know, but even one of those simple ones
Could've
is gonna
gotten you a deal.
cost, it's not cheap,
Yeah.
it's not cheap.
all right.
All the towns around have them.
I completely agree. I've been wanting one for a long time.
Not showing up.
Well,
Yeah.
I think a sandwich board would be lovely. We can take it in when we don't want it anymore. But
There you go.
anyway,
anything,
we need to vote.
Yeah.
So all in favor. So that's a 5-0. All right, then the 24th AP warrant in the amount of, we have a motion to approve it in the amount of $518,729.83.
so moved.
By Ben, seconded by Tor. Anyone have any questions, comments?
I did, but it's late. So
Yeah, we don't want to go outside right now, though, I tell you that. So if you have a question, go ahead. It's pouring out
my
there.
umbrella's in the car.
Mine too.
Um. I didn't circle, sorry. Yeah, see, a lot of these for me are new. I haven't seen them
Yep.
before, so I was trying to figure out what they were.
Here's the,
Yep, I think I had. Oh, the town of Noblesboro, it's now broken into tipping fees and debris removal on a monthly basis. That's an interesting. Always just one number before.
Debris removal. Is that something different? That's something
That
different.
comes
I
out of
think that-
Public Works.
So what?
I'd imagine it'd probably be road debris.
Something that got
Some-
taken to the
something-
transfer
yeah,
station
something
separate
that-
from
Well,
a
that's,
normal.
I mean,
charge
so
to the
June tipping fee, right, is under the account Public Service Waste Disposal Transfer Station.
Mhm.
And then debris removal. So
It's
that,
Public
you're saying
Works.
that's like
The
a,
dump charge does.
that's a one,
Right, that's,
Compared, yeah, a one time only.
that's not part of the contract.
no,
Right, that's, I mean, that's $50. That's a dump
Truck
truck.
road the brush or
Yeah,
something. or-
Yeah, that's a truckload.
No idea.
probably after one of the storms, they had to clean up and take
Or an
the
old
stuff in.
culvert or something they had to get rid of.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then I just was the grant VPI Wright Pierce for,
Yep,
that's
that's
the VPI.
BPI, yep.
Uh, okay.
All right.
Oh,
No.
yeah, the Property Care Plus, $1,800 for cemetery mowing. Can we just check and see how many years it's been that we've been with?
their
that?
contract comes up this year.
And that's, I was gonna actually mention that. That's not just cemetery mowing at this point, is it?
It's all mowing.
Yeah, so it's kind of,
Well, it's
should
not
be-
all mowing because
should
they
be
don't
broken
do
up.
roadside mowing.
no, but
That
it
is
should be
not-
broken
yeah,
apart because they're
different.
doing the town office,
Right.
they're doing here, the town office, Veterans Park, so it's not cemetery, all cemeteries. Right?
Okay.
So it's like part of it's misclassified. It was mostly all cemeteries, but then they've taken on more.
Well, originally it was just, so, yeah, okay, good, great. That goes towards that public works conversation.
Yes, it does.
Yes, exactly.
I'm good.
All right, then all in favor? 5-0. Do I have, I think, a motion to adjourn?
Well, what about town? manager?
Oh, town manager's report. That's right. I'm used to having it done before the
Warrant?
we should do it before the warrant, yeah.
No, after the warrant.
Well, we're going to,
Right, in the future.
but
Right now,
we
this is.
skipped it right
you
now.
skipped-
I skipped it. Sorry,
It's all
Kevin.
right. Double booked. We were last Thursday, planning board, and a fire department meeting happened at the same time. It was a bit of a miscommunication on staff's part, so I apologize to planning board members, and the fire department members, the applicant from the planning board meeting. They're rescheduled for this Thursday. We're notified as best we can. I made the call to not wait 3 more weeks to have that applicant have their day in court. So that got postponed till this Thursday. I've made it so that all staff and elected officials have access to, you probably saw some email from me saying, you now have access to this
Oh, yeah,
calendar.
That's what
That's what that was. I now made it so that you can see everything that's
Mhm.
Good.
potentially going to be used for this space and the Harriet Bird, just so you're aware of what's out there. And so if you do have a request to use the space, you can look first and see if it's even available, and then make a request either first Shelley, either through phone call or an email, but also CC Emma as well. I've made them sort of my 2-point persons, Shelley primary and Emma as backup. So please reach out to them if you want to use this space or the Harriet Bird clubhouse.
Just a quick question. I got to it by clicking on the links that you gave us. Once I close those windows, where is that?
You should have an opportunity to save it in your, as a calendar access within Google.
I'll make sure I
You
do
should.
that.
If you can't come by, I do also serve as IT director on occasion.
Nice. Okay.
Time off, again, I mentioned I have some more updates. So this week I'm out Wednesday and Thursday. I'll be in Friday to help with the transfer over. It's sort of our last day of the year, so there's sort of a migration in trio. I'll be doing that with Michelle. And then the next Wednesday and through Friday, I'll be out as well. Holiday, so I'll be taking that
Already?
off.
Summer means officially starts next Thursday, right? The 4th?
Yeah, the 4th. And then the rest of the month I'll be in My son finally has a summer camp to start in the middle of the second week in July, so I will be in every day that those weeks. So, I'll bet I have to drop him off, so it'll be late morning when I'm in. But here late. So this is a shameless plug, but I'm sleeping in the Mid-Coast Humane Society's animal shelter in Brunswick on Friday night. It's to help raise awareness about homeless pets. I've been a caretaker for dogs, cats, and trainer of dogs. I've done a lot with four-legged furry friends. So this is a cause near and dear to me, and I'm in trouble for not asking people for helping fundraise for my crowdsourcing efforts to sleep in this lovely shelter. So I'm shamelessly plugging a request. In there, I included a QR code. If you don't use QR codes, let me know. I'll send you the link. But I'm just looking for some help. It'd be fun if anybody wanted to show up at the shelter on Friday from 3 to 6. They have an open house. I'm supposed to decorate my space. I'll be asking my wife for help in thinking about how to decorate that space.
Your sleeping space?
My sleeping space.
Do you get wood chips or kitty litter?
I'm supposed to bring my own air mattress or something. Yeah, worried that those claws will end up in my mattress, but no.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've done a lot of training with shelter dogs in the past, and it's been a long time since I've reconnected with an organization. And when I met Banana, family's now 6-month-old puppy, I realized I need to get back to putting some time into that effort.
Awesome.
And then I'm sorry, I'm plugging myself here, but Sunday I'm speaking at In Along the Way. They're doing their challenging conversations series. They're starting with affordable housing. So they've asked Eric Jorgensen from State of Maine Housing, Emily Raby from Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission will be there, and I'll serve as the sort of local perspective on that panel. Some pretty good questions they've come up with, and I've had to think about my responses, but I'm not going to share them tonight because if you want, you can come check it out.
Awesome.
In the barn.
In the barn.
In the
That's right. It's at the event will take place at the Long Barn at the
Yep.
Chapman Farm at 741 Main Street, Damascata. And that's Sunday, June 30th at 3 p.m. And I just share the upcoming agenda items are there. You can take a look at sort of what I've provided, but that's it.
All righty. Thank you, Kevin. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn then? Seconded. All in favor? Yay. Start off the new year, 34 minutes over our time schedule.
I won't blame it on Ben.